Hi everyone, this is audap. Let's continue our game of Fatal 12 on Nintendo Switch. Once in bed, I recall everything that's happened since yesterday. I went on my first date with Mihara to the aquarium. We went to the theme park today. It's been a special weekend, to say the least. The idea that I'll have more experiences like this down the line makes me smile. It's only been 2 days since we started dating. I wonder what else we'll do from here on out. Lette sneaks into my room. I invite it to bed since I'm in a good mood, but it brushes me off. It turns around and makes its way back out of the room, but not before stopping to look back at me. It keeps its eyes locked on me for quite a while. Of the 12 platforms present in the Court of Fate, only 2 remain that participants are actually standing on, Mihara's and my own. A strange sense of sadness pervades the endless dreamscape. As usual, Parsa's voice cuts straight through these sensations. Neither of us react to her comment, causing her to press on. Mihara sighs before speaking. There's a special meaning behind this being the 12th time, though. I always figured that the 12th weeks and 12 participants was due to 12 being a good round number. Like how many years split into 12 months, a clock into 12 hours, and so on. It's a common phenomenon the world over. The same can't be said after this revelation, though. It's too big of a coincidence for the number 12 to reoccur this much. Then again, I'm not sure if 12 is a lot in this case, since I don't know how much time passes between each election period. Now that I think about it, something doesn't add up. Parsa's always mindful of time passing during... Parsa's always mindful of the time passing during... in this procedure. Okay, whatever. She never just lets the participants talk till they're blue in the face. She always forces things forward eventually. Why would she do that if this place is supposedly cut off from the normal flow of time? Parsa makes her announcement before I can ask about it, however. The clock at the center of the Court of Fate begins to move shortly after. A hint of surprise washes across Parsa's face. It soon swirls into a wicked grin, albeit for just a moment. Perhaps she's realized what we're planning, as she knows we're friends. I make eye contact with Miharu. She nods ever so slightly in response. We've placed our bets. Our platforms begin to gradually ascend to the upper stratum.
言葉はもう多くはいらないね。話した通りだ。 君がカードを3枚選んだ後、僕はそれを防ぐ。
Once we arrive, we go over things before Parsa appears. This whole ordeal might just come to an end here. Although unlikely, the possibility does exist. All we need to do is make us both incapable of becoming Parsa's vessel. She won't be able to exist in the real world without one. She might be able to remain within the Court of Fate, but honestly, I don't care what happens to her. What's important is ensuring that we both have a future. Oh, is she not going to defend herself, though? That's why we're doing this. That would make sense for Miharu not to defend herself.
12週間を待たずに最後の一人が決定する。あなた様が運命の終着点へとたどり着くまでには1週間の猶予がありますけれどさまつな問題ですわね。2番様よりは貧相な体ではございますけれど可愛らしくて楽しみですわ。
あなただって大して変わらないでしょ。
あら、私は女神ですわよ。あなた様のような人間の感覚で比べるのは戦慮が過ぎるというものですわ。
ちょっと怒ってるよね。
Knowing that Miharu is going to protect herself helps keep me composed. Part of me does fear Parsa's reaction based on how pleased with the situation she is. We won't get anywhere without trying, though.
もういいだろう。始めよう。
Miharu is on the same page as me. Parsa pouts for a moment, but she quickly adopts a grin instead.
それでは1番様、指名をどうぞ。
I nod and flip open my card book. Picking out the 3 cards I need is an easy task.
使命、蛇名美春、死因、自殺、未練、獅子舞凛花。
I speed right through the election this time. Once I finish, Miharu opens her card book. I can't see too well thanks to the light, but I assume she's getting her cards ready as well.
さて2番様、カードブックを開いていらっしゃるということは防御を行うということでしょうか。
凛花、ありがとう。こうやってカードブックを開いていれば少しだけ時間が稼げると思ってね。
That's what I figured she'd do. A cold chill runs down my spine. I have no idea what she's implying. Well, I mean, I do. I'm just trying to convince myself otherwise. There's no way I can accept it. There's no way.
君と特別な関係になることができて本当に良かった。幸せだった。悔いがないとは言わないよ。でも僕は君に言っただろ。女神の選定における僕の目的は君を最後の一人にすること。
何言ってるの、美春。美春は私のカードを持ってる。だから。
My mind's a mess from the sudden change of events. I can feel my emotions going wild.
また君に嘘をついてしまったね。思えば僕は凛花に嘘や隠し事をしてばかりだった。
いいよ、そんなの。美春がすることは一つ。今出ているカードの中から私のカードを3枚選ぶだけ。そうすれば。
僕の本心を話すよ。僕は凛花に確実に生きてほしいんだ。
私だって美春と生きたいよ。だって私たちはこれからなんだよ。
これからだからこそ僕の引き際なんだ。僕は自分で死を選んだ。元から他の参加者を押しのけて生き残る権利なんてなかったんだ。
美春言ってたよ。自分のことを許せたって。
それも本心だよ。
ならなんで。
これが僕の答えだ。凛花の運命を変えるためなら死ぬなんて怖くはないよ。
違う、そんなの違う。
違わないよ。僕は凛花を愛しているからね。
私だって あ、私はきっとこれから人生で初めて恋愛するんだって信じてた。
ありがとう。凛花がそう思ってくれたことバレバレだったよ。だから僕は満足できた。
満足なんてしないで。だって私たちまだキスだってしてない。
ああ、だから言っただろ、悔いがないわけではないと。
なら
She closes her card book, a sign that my plea has fallen on deaf ears. There's no pain or anguish in her expression. She offers only a sincere, beautiful smile.
あなた様は今カードブックを閉じました。
僕にわからないと思うかい？
待ってよ、まだ。
凛花、
美晴。
さようなら。再会を望む言葉はもういらない。これは僕の選んだ別れだ。君と特別な関係になった3日間、別れが近いと思うとそれはとても濃密な時間だった。
やだ私。
The cards I choose begin to move, as if my will has no further say in the matter. I try to reach out and snatch them back to no avail.
お願い、バルカ、女神様、止めて、もう一度、せめて次の制定まで保留に。
いいんだ凛花。選定が始まってからの約3ヶ月間生きた僕の記憶は君にしか残らない。
そんなの幸せじゃないよ。
My 3 cards make their way to the center of the Court of Fate. Once there, light pours forth from them.
夢の世界とはよく言ったものだよ。僕が過ごしてきた今日までの日々は、なるほど、夢のようだ。生きて生き続けてほしい。
My overflowing emotions cause me to collapse onto my knees. There's no way for me to stop it. Miharu's going to die again, and there's nothing I can do about it.
僕は僕しか知らない凛花を知っている。この後に及んで僕は君を独り占めできることを喜んでいる。
I can't even see her through the light anymore.
凛花の人生にはこれからいろいろな特別が増えていくだろう。いつかなら。
Miharu's voice fades as she speaks. My mind grows cloudy following that. The scene shifts to that of a lone girl, the type of person with a tendency to beat themselves up in the face of any misfortune. This leads to her desire for pain, a desire that never abated. She came to learn about the wickedness in people's hearts, the insatiable parasite known as jealousy. What's worse, she learned that she herself was a host for it. She decided to reject herself. Rejecting oneself while trapped in a mental prison was no simple task. It was something that could only be accomplished through death. Knowing this, she chose to put herself to rest. Her limp body and blood-drenched covers were reminiscent of a princess asleep on a bed layered with flower petals. I'm unable to bring myself to my feet, even after returning to the lower stratum. Miharu has been eliminated. I saw the moment of her death as a result. The same happened with you, Scale, and Alan. I elected all of them to keep my own life. And I even did it to Miharu. I sacrificed what's most precious to me. Parsa explodes into an evil grin. I can't contain my anger. How dare she laugh in the face of what's just happened? The sheer vigor in which I shout at her sends my tears flying off my face. Her laughter doesn't let up, though. It doesn't take long for me to realize that her evil grin is directed right towards me.
やっとこの時が来ましたわ。あなた様を、一番様を、獅子舞凛花様を私の器にできる時が。この喜びを微笑み以外の一体何で表現できましょう。
Fear begins to take hold. My every instinct screams at me that Parsa is dangerous. That fear, interwoven with my grief over losing Miharu, causes my entire body to convulse.
あら、もしかしてあなた様は感じ取っているのかもしれませんね。私と同じ肉体を持つあなた様であれば。
何を。
あなた様がたどり着いていない真実であれば、私の口から語るまでもありませんわ。大切なのは私の悲願がようやく叶うということですわ。
もうどうでもいい。悲しませてよ。私は大切な人を失ったんだ。あなたのご託に付き合っている暇はない。
では少しだけ女神の選定についてお話をいたしましょう。
Giving into my own despair, I finally rise to my feet. Parsa seems to interpret that as my intent to listen, which prompts her to continue.
はっきり申し上げましょう。女神の選定とは運命を変える儀式。運命の奴隷の皆様の死の運命を変えることのできる唯一の方法でございます。私は器である人間が命を落とすその瞬間、因果により結ばれた12人の運命をねじ曲げる。無限に存在する運命の支流、未来の可能性、その中から運命の奴隷である12人の皆様が死ななかったことになっている世界を探し、糸を紡ぐように束ねるのです。けれどもそれは世界への反抗に等しいこと。ねじ曲げられた運命には戻ろうとする力が働きます。
戻ろうとする力。
I can't help but question her terminology. I have to know. Why were we granted this glimmer of hope in the first place? Is it possible that it'll be ripped away from us by using this counterforce?
この世界は認知の上に成り立っていますわ。皆様がリンゴをリンゴだと思うからこそ、リンゴはリンゴとして存在することができるのです。リンゴがこの世界でみかんと認識されれば、この世界のリンゴは全てみかんになってしまいます。つまり獅子舞凛花様というあなた様が生きているのは、あなた様が誰かに生きていると認識されているからでございますわ。世界の本流、最も存在する世界が違えばどれが本流かも変わってしまうのですけれど、において獅子舞凛花は死んでいると認識されているとしましょう。そこにあなたが生きているという世界を紡ぐことで矛盾が生まれる。獅子舞凛花は死んでいるのに獅子舞凛花が生きているという矛盾。この矛盾がある限り、世界はより広く認知されている方に戻ろうとします。これが運命が元に戻ろうとする力。強引に束ねられた運命は再びそれぞれの支流に分かれようとするということでございます。
それならミハルが生きている支流も存在するんだよね。ミハルも私も生きている可能性が、今からでもその世界に変えられないの。
あなた様であれば答えは分かっているのでしょう。私は万能の絶対神ではございません。
なら見張るだけが生きている世界でもいい。あんな別れ方をするくらいなら。
私の話があなた様に希望を持たせてしまったみたいですわね。残念ながらそれも不可能でございます。あなた様が2番様を脱落させた時点で2番様が生きている世界は元に戻る。この世界から遠ざかってしまいます。遠ざかっていく世界を引き戻す力は今の私にはございません。もっともそれが可能でも私は行いませんけれども。
美晴はさ、あなたの元の器だったんでしょ。夢の中で話もしたって言ってた。同情とか親近感とかそういうものはないの？
私には理解できない感情ですわ。器はあくまで私が現実世界に存在するためのもの。
一生この世界にいればいい。
それはお断りさせていただきますわ。私が器を借りず夢の世界に存在できるのもまた12週間。
それを過ぎるとどうなるの？
それはすでにこの世界では存在しない可能性でございます。お話ししてもあなたには理解できない事象ですわ。
Pasha takes one step towards me, following that. My body has stopped shaking at this point, but one thing remains steadfast. I know for a fact that she isn't human. She really is a goddess. Her piercing gaze alone is enough to make me freeze.
私たちは何をさせられてたの？
それはお話しするまでもないことでございます。これからご覧いただきましょう。
I feel my world shrinking with each step she takes towards me. Then, out of nowhere, the situation takes a sharp turn.
何？
The court of fate begins to collapse following a tremor. Suddenly, I panic. I'm bound to get caught up in this so long as I'm here. I don't know how to leave the dream world on my own, though.
恐れることはございません。
The crumbling world soon begins to light up, and the light gradually gathers around Parsa.
あなた様にわかる言葉で説明をすると、運命の大広間とは人間の存在を収集するためのシステム。選定の参加者が脱落するとき、死んでいるという認知だけが元の世界には残ります。つまりその方の思いは元の世界に戻らないということですわ。世界からあぶれてしまった思いというかけらはこの運命の大広間に夢となって収容される。故に皆様は運命の奴隷。凛花様、あなた様は奴隷から解放され私の器となった。
Pasha shows no concern for the world collapsing around her. The light grows stronger and stronger with each step that brings her even closer to me. There's little I can do besides remain motionless, unable to understand anything that's going on. I have nowhere to run while I'm stuck on this small platform. My only choice is to watch as she approaches.
11の夢は私の力に変わります。その力を消費することで私が現実世界に存在するという奇跡を起こすのでございますわ。
そのために私たちに束の間の希望を与えたっていうの？だとしたらそれは人をもてあそぶのと同じ。この場所にいたみんなはあなたの踏み台になったってことでしょ。
何か問題がございましたか？
私はあなたが憎い。
I have no reservations in calling her that. Sorry, Gran. There's no two ways about it. I hate the being before me with every fiber of my existence.
いいよ、来て。あなたが私の中にいてくれれば私は一生 あなたを恨み続けられる。
Pasha extends her hand out to me. Her palm is so tiny, her arms so slender. They seem like they'll snap by just touching me. I extend my own hand in response. Pasha doesn't take mine in hers, though. Her hand goes straight towards my chest. After making contact, it sinks into my body. In this moment, I witness her merging with my own body. The light surrounding her envelops me. Upon closing my eyes, I see a number of dreams. I'm not sure if I'm remembering them, or if the light is responsible. Chan and Ro, who were eliminated without me ever knowing anything about them, I'm sure they had their own desires in the face of the brief hope they were given. Akaiko, who entrusted her feelings for her child to me, I'm sure she and her husband shared those feelings, hence why a letter was never needed in the first place when naming it. I'm so sorry, Sonia. You wished for our happiness from the bottom of your heart, but I'm the only one who survived. I promise I'll show Pazir more of the world for your sake, at least. Shigetsuku, who loved you as if he were his own grandson. Our time together was brief, and though I never really came to like him, I can't say I hated him. He had his own convictions in all this, not to mention the things he wanted you to learn. As for you, I can never forgive him for killing Naomi. The despair he went through is something I can't let myself forget, though. It represents the tragedies happening all across the world. His regret represented his desire to live a normal, simple life, similar to my own, yet with a much heavier weight to it. He simply wanted that which he never had. So I can't hate him, despite what he did. Odette, whose strength never ceased to amaze me. She had accepted her fate, I'm certain. Death is simply the end result of life, after all. Her resolve to not look back is what allowed her to leave on her own terms. I can't condemn Scale for his attachment to life. That's why my only option was to eliminate him by my own will. I may not have been able to condemn him, but I could never see eye to eye with him. I only ever met Federico in the real world once, but his realization that he had been victorious left him shivering with joy. Not too sure about his life and how it played out, but I have no doubt that to him, it was worth it in the end. Alan, whose sister I resembled. His way of life was something I could never accomplish. That was precisely why I thought he was incredible. And Miharu, who taught me more about who I was than anyone else. I don't know much about being in love, but her confession was no doubt a turning point for me. One so major it changed my entire outlook on how to live. Grief overwhelms me once more now that Parsa is done with her explanation. This is different from what happened with Naomi. Miharu won't come back, no matter what I do. I know that I'm going to feel even worse than I do now when I wake up in the real world. Even so, I need to live on. I'll live my life to its absolute fullest. A voice rings out. An incredibly annoying voice at that. The voice gradually becomes more distant, but I already know. I know because... I finally grasp my own consciousness. Parsha's speech is a bit fuzzy, but I can more or less understand her. This has to be a different process from what she did with Miharu.
これから見せてあげましょう。その頃にはもうあなた様の意志は消滅しているでしょうけれど。
If I had to describe what I'm experiencing right now, I'd liken it to having my insides thrown in a blender. The foreign object whirring around within me makes me want to throw up. If my understanding is correct, then she has one thing in mind. She wants to take control of my body. That theory soon becomes conviction.
あなた様をいただいて、私は現実世界の住人になりますわ。
She really is trying to take control of me. But I have no special powers of my own to speak of. There's nothing I can do to stop her. Even so, I can't sit by and let someone wrest my own body from me. Not even Maharu was robbed of this. I know my mind is being taken over, yet I'm able to remain defiant. It doesn't change anything, though. Parsa's will eventually overtakes my own. The glow of the morning sun wakes me up. I never would have guessed that light could sting the body this bad. Myths portray sunlight as a force that can roast humans alive. Now I understand where those ideas come from. Not that I feel any discomfort. Life and pain walk hand in hand. I have yet to experience the latter, but I truly believe that to be the case.
あら、レオじゃありませんの。お元気でいらっしゃいましたか？
Leo hisses at me before scurrying off somewhere. Quite the odd attitude for a cat that was once rather fond of me. Well, this won't do. I should take a moment to calm down. I have become Shishima Rinka. I am present in her home. Thus, that cat cannot be Leo.
気をつけないといけませんね。学校に行くはずですけれども。まあ、大丈夫ですわね。行ってみればきっとなんとかなるでしょう。
A uniform is required at her school, as I recall. Relying on faint memories, I attempt to locate my own. Other preparations are required before leaving, but those seem to come naturally. I suppose these can be explained away as habits. I take a look at my new self in the mirror. Shishima Rinka's eyes were once blazing rubies, but now my lovely amethyst eyes have taken their place. Fancy as they may be, I doubt many people will take notice. Well, all will work out just fine. These are my real eyes, after all.
リンカ先輩、どうしたんですか？カラコンですか？
No bother. Who could have thought that my eyes would so quickly become the primary topic of conversation? This calls for but one course of action. I shall play the fool.
あら、どこかおかしくて？
いや、先輩、喋り方がなんかいつもより上品ですし、違和感が。あれ、もしかして人違いですか？
This simply won't do. My life as Shishima Rinka has only just begun. The adorable girl panicking before me is Hitsuki Naomi, my junior 1 year below me, and someone with whom I seem to have a very good relationship. Perhaps it would be best to imitate the style of speech she's accustomed to. Let's see. Shishima Rinka spoke like this, as I recall.
どうしたの？ナオミ。変だよ。
リンカ先輩なのは間違いなさそうだし。でも、おかしくなりそうです。で、今日はお休みのはずですけど、先輩はどうして学校に？
My adaptation seems to have worked. She has given up on trying to make sense of things. But as for her current question, I was rather forceful in my means, so I'm not quite used to accessing Rinka's memories yet. After a pause, I finally find a somewhat useful excuse.
忘れてた。
先輩らしいというか、なんというか。先週まで期末試験だったじゃないですか。だから今週は木曜日まで試験休みです。
あれ？なんであなたナオミは来てるの？
私は図書室に本を返しに来て、そのついでにまた何か借りようかなって。
そっか。私も行こうかな。 せっかく学校に来ちゃったんだし。
先輩がですか？珍しい。
たまにはね。
Give me just 1 second. I'm getting the hang of how to talk like her. Displaying around 1/3 of my emotion seems to do the trick. Linka is not one for books, judging by Naomi's reaction. Quite unlike my actual self, is taking some effort to conceal my glee. What sorts of books await me within, I wonder? The library is a facility within the school where students can borrow all manner of literature, it would seem. The world itself implies as much. The librarian is present despite it being a holiday, too. What an admirable sort. Naomi returns her book first and then sets off to find a new one. Half an hour later, we seat ourselves at one of the public tables.
先輩、ずいぶんじっくり選んでましたね。
Naomi sounds vaguely surprised. Alas, my grasp of the concept of time requires further polish.
シェイクスピア、先輩好きなんですか？
まあね。
I once disliked his works, but they speak to me more now. My current interest may be suspect, but all I must do is make them seem like a natural growth. Keeping one's desires at bay is detrimental to both body and soul. We spend time making small talk following that. The concept of small talk befuddles me before now, but engaging it with Naomi has proven quite a fruitful experience. All we do is discuss minor trivialities from our lives and the like. Now I understand how most people interact. I must say, though, being able to enjoy conversation without it being at the expense of others is lovely. Naomi attempts to address me, her expression ever so meek. Meek is a rather funny word, isn't it? Perhaps I should try my hand at such an expression. A meek goddess. Quite the juxtaposition. Well, former goddess.
そろそろ遊園地に行きませんか？三島先輩のことを忘れたわけではないんです。でも真央先輩もずっと寂しそうで遊びに誘われることもなくて、だから行く予定だった遊園地に行って悲しんで欲しんで泣いて、でもちろん私じゃ三島先輩の代わりになれるなんて思っていません。でも凛花先輩にも真央先輩にもちょっとずつ前を向いてほしいです。
What a lovely girl she is. She must have been quite fond of numeral 2. Ah, my mistake. I should refrain from referring to her as such in my current state. Miharu took her own life on May 3rd in this world. Over 2 months have passed, and yet their grief has not. Of course, I would never make such an observation aloud. I happen to know precisely how Shishima Rinka would respond to this.
そうだね。気を使わせちゃったね。ごめん。でもありがとう。マオには私から声をかけるよ。
先輩。
Her eyes are twinkling with joy. She was able to overcome her own grief quicker than the other two due to knowing Miharu less, I presume. Forcing those who suffer the grief outdoors is an important skill in its own right, I must say. This is a phrase my grandmother apparently would say often. Having checked out a book, I finally return home. It seems that my eyes will prove to be of no issue so long as I act as though it is all normal. The issue comes from within. Quite a nice saying. I'm doing rather well, if I do say so myself. Once home, I leave the book I borrowed from the library on my own desk. There's quite a lot on this desk, really, but by no fault of my own, I must add. A stuffed animal, a letter with nothing written on it, and a key? No, a keychain. I am assaulted by a sudden headache. My surprise at the pain caused me to revert to my natural speech. I must take care that this doesn't happen in public. I feel myself wanting to not look at these for reasons I cannot quite understand. Were they important to me, perhaps? I try to recall, but it feels as though the memories remain off limits. Well then, making my way downstairs to read this book seems a novel idea. This is a cafe, from what I recall. A rather fine location for some reading. Oops. I revert to my speech pattern again. I place the blame squarely on this wretched coffee. Cafe should be all about tea, and yet there is nary a drop in sight. Not but coffee as far as the eye can see. I tend to make some myself, but the taste is just too much for me. Running this store also seems to be part of my daily life, a fact that leaves me both anxious and excited. The store has remained closed for some time now, so cleanup is necessary. As such, I take some time to wash the dishes, cutlery, and the like. All this I can do out of habit. I seem to have been quite the hard worker. Now then, it's time to check for anything missing. I notice an unopened box while checking the cupboards. A rather heavy one at that. I assume more than cutlery is contained within. Far be it from me not to make use of new goods. Thinking that, I open it up. A sharp pain stabs through my temples once more, far worse than the previous episode. Another headache, I presume. Odd, considering how I am supposedly not one to suffer from them often. Perhaps I'm simply not yet used to this body, leading to premature exhaustion. I should finish with haste and sleep early tonight. I have a long life ahead of me. It would be a shame to overexert myself at this stage. 2 mugs are within the box. I take them out to inspect them. Both have mascots printed on them, although they don't seem to be made for children. I'm willing to assume they're not for use within the store. Upon closer inspection, I notice 2 names inscribed on them. Rinka Shishimai, that's me. The other says Miharo Mishima. A pair of mugs for good friends, I assume. Curious as I am, I'd much rather avoid another headache today. I can attempt to recall at a later date. I hear a voice addressing me. Well, it's one I've been trying to ignore, but perhaps I should give it some attention now. It's coming from none other than myself, after all. The pain caused by my headache worsens, leading me to collapse.
わかるよ。
おやめなさい。もしあなた様の意志があるなら、それは器の中にいる私と同じ状態。とても幸運でございますわ。私に完全に支配されることなく意識を保っているのですから。もし仮にあなた様が私の意識を再び上書きしようとしているのであれば、それは
失敗なんてしない。だってあなたの力はあなたのものじゃないんでしょ。
選定の参加者の夢が力に変わったからと言いたいのでしょうか。力はあくまで力。エネルギーに意志などありませんわ。あなた
やってみなきゃわからない。
失敗すればあなた様の意志は完全に消えますわ。夢の世界ですら現れることはできなくなってしまいます。こうして少しでも意識が残った幸運をかみしめるべきですわ。私の中から世界を見ることはできますもの。それに私はとても楽しかったですわ。だから私は私を譲るわけにはいきません。
もう黙って返してもらう。私だけの私を。
いいでしょう。文字通り全身全霊で今宵あなた様を完全に消滅させましょう。
The result of our final served as the last chapter of my first semester as a second-year student at Amicha. Mao comes over to bother me while I'm taking a peek at them.
お疲れリーター。
どうにか全教科60点は超えた。頑張った甲斐があったよ。
サイですか。
I share my results with pride, but Mao looks away from me. That makes it obvious I managed to outdo her this time. I use this window of opportunity to snatch her report card from her. Only to be shocked by what I see.
いや、リータンあれだけ頑張ってたのに魔王様以下だったのはかわいそうだし。
She's managed to score about 10% higher than me on every subject. She said she didn't want to rain on my parade, but I know that's not the case. She just wanted to take me by surprise. The proof is in the pudding being her grin in this case.
まあまあ、これでどうにか試験が終わったね。夏休みどうしよっか。ナオリンは8月の最後の方で家族旅行するみたいだって。あと塾も行くって言ってたね。若いのに大変だの。
We'd already agreed to go to Stardust Kingdom next Friday. We have nothing else planned, though. None of us are in any clubs, so there's little reason for us to come to school during summer. Naomi will probably drop by the library every now and then, but I have no intention of joining her. I tried to read that Shakespeare book that's sitting at home, but it's pretty boring. I'll probably see Mao a lot, but I'd rather all three of us be together if we're doing something special. There's one other thing, though. Something we have to do no matter what. Something I promised back then, with her.
花火大会。これは絶対行かないと約束したからね。
With Miharu.
あれ、そんな約束したっけ？してたような、してたような。
両方してるよ。大丈夫。多分ナオミも覚えてるから。
ナオリンも？そっか。なら大丈夫か。
Today's will be the first time in a while that we've all gotten together at Lionhouse. I'm still not sure which parts of my memory are correct in relation to the current world, but the thing is, I don't really care. Now that Miharu's gone, I'd rather look to the future than think about the past. I keep the store open until the evening, and after that I spend some time relaxing. I think back to that night, when I spoke to Parsa following the 11th election. I'm sure my existence was on the brink of fading away, but I was able to re-establish dominance thanks to Maharu. Our knowledge of sides to us that no one else knew helped me keep control of myself. That's the only reason I can think of. Parsa may know more than I do, but it's also possible that she doesn't exist within me at all anymore. I am, and forever will be, Shishima Rinka.
さて、寝るかな。
It's that time of year when I start to get sick of how warm it is. Lete plods in as I dive into bed. He jumps up and curls up beside me. Tonight would have been the night of the final election. I never did find out what would happen if Miharu and I had elected one another. I couldn't bring myself to finish the diary either. Not that I'd be able to decipher the English in it now that my card book disappeared along with the Court of Fate. Naomi lost most of her memories regarding Divine Selection too, so I doubt she'll take much pleasure in Actually, this is Naomi. She'd probably love to read it even now. I might just be the only one left who knows about Divine Selection. That's fine. No one else needs to know. My knowledge alone should be enough to support someone. Mainly myself. Am I crying? Nah, I can't do that. I've long since exhausted my supply of tears. I think I am dreaming for a moment, but it turns out that I'm just in the dream world, where a voice I've become ever so familiar with speaks out to me.
Yeah. まさか人間が瞬きほどの短い時でも自分の力で私たちの領域に踏み込んでくるとは思わなかった。かつて到達した人間もいなくはないが、あれは全く特殊なケース。もっとも君もよっぽど特別ではあるけれど、女神の選定というシステムを遂行しながら女神を消滅させる。これを偉業と言わず何と言おう。おっと、消滅と言うべきではなかったね。それが何を意味するのか君はすでに分かっているのかもしれないけれど、おっと、その前に君に全ての真実を話すべきだったかな。
I don't need him to. I don't care about the past anymore. My eyes are set solely on my future. He seems to understand what I'm feeling, which explains his sudden smile.
君と会うのもこれが最後だから、もう少し長く話をしたかったけれどね。さて、それでは質問だ。君は君の中に残っているものに気づいているかい？
I am not, really. I wonder if I say I am, I'll get like an alternate ending. I'm not.
さすがの君もそこまでは見抜けないか。いや、落胆はしていない。繰り返しになるけれど、君はここまでたどり着いたことがすでに偉業なのだから。君の中にあるもの、それは女神の力というべき力だ。女神は夢のかけらと表現していたけれど、紛れもなく人知を超えたエネルギーと言われるもの。11度目の選定の時にことが終わって本当に良かった。運命の終着点にたどり着いてしまったら、これから起こるはずの奇跡は起こせなかっただろう。君は一度だけ運命を変えることができる。
This doesn't surprise me. It's something I had already anticipated. It's felt like something irregular has been inside of me for the past week. It's the same feeling as when Parsa forced herself into my body.
ただし、運命を変えるためには条件がある。運命が戻ろうとする力の存在は君はすでに知っていると思う。君が運命を変えようと世界は元に戻ろうとする。そこで私の出番だ。私は忘却の川に等しき存在。ただ一度の奇跡のために世界の認知を騙すくらいなら喜んで手を貸そう。
I really wish he wouldn't be so roundabout when explaining things. There's no way I'm going to understand any of this, so I wish he'd just be blunt.
君は一層手厳しくなったね。長きにわたる選定を乗り切ったならば当然かもしれないけれど、君に与えられた選択肢は2つ。1つ目は女神の選定に参加した全員が生きている世界を紡ぎ、因果の時そのものを なかったことにしてしまうこと。その代償として世界からその間の記憶は忘却される。もちろん君自身も。君が覚えていれば世界は元に戻ろうとしてしまうからね。そして2つ目、何もしないこと。君は女神の力を持ちながら何もしないことだ。しばらくは他人の夢と同調することくらいはあるかもしれないが、いずれ君は体内の異物感にもなれ、自分が力を持っていることすら忘れてしまうだろう。その頃には私も君のことを忘れているだろう。何しろ私の知能は猫並みだ。パンダの君よりも知能が低い。
I don't bother to ask him how he knows about it, how he knows about a conversation I had with Mao. Either way, this makes things much easier to comprehend. I just had to make a choice. As for me... Oh, we have another one? Okay. Well, how many times are we going to have choices here? I mean, we don't have a whole lot of choices throughout the entire game, so we're going to alter fate.
変えるよ、運命ってやつを。私が自分の意志で全てをなかったことにする。
よく言った。それでは君のすることは一つ。夢見る乙女のように願うことさ。
I do as he says. Being alive is all that matters. Even if it means both me and Miharu will forget about those sides of each other we came to know. Even if it means forgetting all about the other participants. Even if it means forgetting about Naomi's conviction to shoulder my burden with me. Even if it means forgetting about how I fell in love with Miharu. Even if it means forgetting about the time I spent with everyone. That's fine.
それではお別れだ。君の未来に幸あれ。
Good things are bound to happen so long as we're alive. Oh, well, does that mean Yu is going to kill us again? I mean, he's still going to be a little bastard. Alright, so, yeah, that was Fatal 12, or at least one of the endings of Fatal 12. I suppose if we have a little time, we can look at the other ending and see what goes on. Yeah, I really like this visual novel. I was looking for something that was going to be, you know, similar to, similar to the other games that we played. But yeah, this is kind of interesting all in its own right. It's like, you know, spiritual and a mystery at the same time. It's got some interesting characters. Nobody really stands out in my mind, unfortunately, but they all kind of play along, and I think they do well. And I think this is something that's certainly worth owning if you are a fan of visual novels, and if you like playing your visual novels on the Switch, especially. You know, I think it's a pretty good way to enjoy it. You know, you can alter the text a little bit and make it a little bigger, and I think it flows pretty well. Allows you to save anywhere, so it's got a lot of pluses for it for a portable enjoyment. You know, I still think Raging Loop, for my money, is the best visual novel on the Switch, and probably one of the best visual novels ever made. But this is in the top 10 certainly, and it didn't. At no point in time did I not enjoy myself, which I can't say for some of the things that we played on this channel. So as far as my review, and now that we're getting to the end of it, yeah, definitely highly recommended. I know it's strange for some people to be paying this much for a visual novel, but I think it's really worth it. They spent a lot of time with the with the backgrounds and the art and the characters. A lot of work went into the translation. You know, we had one or two shady bits, but considering the volume of text, I think it's pretty successful, especially in conveying its emotions. I think there's going to be a little bit of a after episode 2 as well, if it's like every other visual novel. But yeah, I'm glad this made it over. A lot of these visual novels, especially during the PSP days, they were just stuck in Japan, and we would have to depend on fan translations, which obviously have their own special appeal. Sometimes fan translations are a little too literal, and I think this is trying to capture more emotion than be literal translations. Literal is just too much. You know, it's like doing literal translations of lyrics. They don't really get at the heart of the idea behind the original source material. And in a way, it's sort of a lazy way to go about translations, because it's not really, you know, I mean, language is not really about words, it's about conveying ideas. We just happen to use words as the medium to do it. And sometimes we use the wrong words, and we, you know, portray the wrong ideas, and that can be the danger of a literal translation, is that, you know, you may be doing, you know, the original story a disservice by being too literal. Of course, you can also stray too far from the path, as most of us who grew up in the 90s and you know, had to suffer through working designs and their rather liberal translations of source material. You know, you can go on the opposite ends of the spectrum, but I think this one falls right in the middle, which is where it should be. I don't know if this is, like, again, I'd say this is in the top 10, certainly, of what we've been playing for visual novels. But it's not quite at the top. Like I said, I put Raging Loop up there at the very top. If I could play Clannad for you without having tons of copyright infringement warnings, then I would do that too, and that would go high up in the list as well. Unfortunately, I'm just not able to do that because of the way music copyright works for Japanese works. You know, they're very, very stringent on that, and the whole game is filled with one copyrighted song after another, and the publisher goes after me if I even go after the rest of the game. So, but it is something to consider if you want to buy something. I think they did a good job with that one too. It takes me a while to drag myself out of bed upon waking up. I feel so drowsy today. Let a groan slip out while I make a big stretch. Or, today's the first day of summer vacation. It's also Marine Day, a public holiday. Nothing special has happened up until now. That leads me to hope that maybe something will during the summer. I go through my usual morning routine while daydreaming about such a possibility. You can't change reality with wishes, though. Part of me knows that I'll just spend time with my friends doing the same things as usual. Not quite sure why I've chosen to come here today. I feel like I'm going for a walk, and before I know it, here I am at Shinguchu National Park. I've been here with my gran plenty of times, so it's kind of a special place to me. The view of the clock tower from here is great too.
すみません。ホテルを探しているんですけど。
A woman approaches me while I'm walking around. She seems like a tourist. It's actually pretty common to run into foreigners here.
ホテルを探してるなら、とりあえず公園から出た方がいいと思いますけど。
あれ？公園？私、いつの間にここに来たんだろう。
Bit of a weird thing to say when you need to pay to get in, but I stand with her while she whips out her phone. Besides her is a pleasant-looking man. I can only assume it's her boyfriend based on how comfortable he seems to be with her, or maybe he's her husband.
まあいいや。とりあえずこの公園でお散歩しよっかな。行こう、ビル。ありがとね。
Saying that, they skip away. She seems like the kind of person who just went with the flow, so it made sense that she'd randomly wander in here. The man with her was smiling about it though, so it must be a healthy relationship. Wait a minute. How did I talk to her just now? She was speaking English, a language I'm hardly fluent in. Things only get stranger from there. I overhear a man in a suit. He starts speaking to his family after that, but in Chinese. I can't understand a thing they're saying. I notice an interesting duo after some more walking. They seem quite spirited, to say the least.
おいおい、こんなところ来てどうするんだ。
ああ、理由なんてねえよ。これからしばらく日本で暮らさないといけねえんだ。知ったこの国の文化を楽しめよ、アンポンタン。
ま、仕方がねえか。あんたの船も沈んじまって行く場所もない。この国なら組織の連中も来ないだろうしよ。だがこの国で飲むイタリアワインは高すぎる。
てめえが言ったのはぼったくりのろくでもない店だろ。どうせやれ。あは、てめえのおごりでな。
ああ、
絵になる2人を発見。1枚撮らせてもらうよ。
おい、勝手に撮ってんじゃ。
ネットにはアップしないから安心してくれ。ただの俺の趣味だ。
They're all pretty tall people, but you could mistake them for high school kids with the way they're acting. It's funny. They've all just met, but I get the feeling they've known each other for years.
この場所に似合わないうるさい連中だ。
Sorry, I had to change the tags. A dark-skinned young man complains about them from not too far away.
アムが日本へ留学したいとダダをこねていたが、これは見送らせるべきか。
あら、いいところですよ、この国は。
そうか。
この子、生まれて3ヶ月になるんです。
なぜ僕にそれを？
あなた、余裕がなさそうに見えるから。せっかくの観光なのですから、肩の力を抜けばいいのに。ね。
仕事のついでに寄っただけだ。余計なお世話ではあるが、ここでは肩を張る必要もないか。
Today's full of conversations between randoms. Odd as this seems, I doubt someone's going to pop up and explain the reason why to me.
ああ。
元気がないようだの。どれ、今日は大勝ちしたんじゃ。売店でアイスを買ってやろう。
うん。
An old man and his granddaughter pass by. The girl has a golden key attached to her backpack. Next, I hear the energetic voice of another girl. She seems to have overheard the conversation that just took place.
お父様、ソーニャもアイスを食べたいってあります。
She's walking along with her parents while carrying a stuffed animal. They seem like a wealthy family, but more importantly, a happy one.
パサジール、そこのお姉様にご挨拶です。
She makes her teddy bear bow at me. I don't deal with stuff like this very well out of the blue, so I just bow back. I don't know if that's an appropriate response, but she's already run off to catch up with her family at the ice cream stall. Today's quite a lively day in the park. Kind of feels like I've fallen into a wonderland, but whatever, who cares? Just as I'm about to head back home, I notice a familiar figure. I sneak over towards her before planting myself down right next to her.
バレているよ、リンカ。
知ってる。どうしてここに？
君に会いたくなったからさ。
なんだ、いつも通りか。
I lean in close to her. She's pretty tall, so I end up resting my head against her arm.
リンカ。
I feel like exhausted for some reason. Mihara's face lightens up a bit, but she eventually leans in towards me as well. There's nothing special about today. We're just living out our normal lives. It's our one and only shot at life. A black cat sits with its back towards the sunset. With one mew, it resumes yet another of its leisurely strolls. Like a dream world. I'm assuming there's multiple endings again. I don't know if people are interested in watching the other endings. I sort of like to leave something like this up to people who purchase the game and experience for themselves. But I do know that people are curious, so if you really want to see more endings, certainly let me know in the comments. And we can go through it at least very briefly one more time and check it out. Anyway, this is audapostrophe. You've been watching Fatal 12 on Nintendo Switch. I hope you enjoyed watching, and I will see you at the next stream.